everybody, and welcome to Mahi Matters, New Zealand's employment market update. And today we're looking at confidence versus reality, why Kiwi workers are feeling the job market is tougher than perhaps it is. Also onto the show, are we heading into a confidence crisis in the New Zealand job market? So this week we're joined by Charles Ryman, career coach, to unpack the disconnect between the latest numbers and what's really happening in New Zealand's job market. Employment figures may be on the rise, but confidence among both job seekers and employers is slipping. So where is the disconnect coming from? 𝗱𝗵𝘁'𝘀, also on the show today, we're looking at non-promotable tasks. Are you getting lumped with the invisible tasks at work? We'll explore our latest job opportunities across New Zealand. And lastly, are qualifications required? Did your degree help you advance your career? Now, on paper, New Zealand's job market looks steady with filled job rates climbing month after month. Well, we're getting there gradually. But behind the numbers, the story is very different. So a recent survey shows that more than half of Kiwis, 53%, lack confidence in finding new work, and most employers, 55%, believe conditions are actually getting tougher. The contrast highlights a growing disconnect between the data and the day-to-day reality, or how it feels on the ground. While official figures suggest improvement, workers and businesses are still feeling the strain, pointing to deeper challenges shaping confidence in the market. To discuss this further, we're joined today by Charles Ryman, career coach at Charles Ryman Career Coaching. Welcome, Charles.
Kia ora, Shannon. Nice to meet you, and thank you for your time.
No problems. Now, to start off, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your experience and your work with Charles Ryman Career Coaching?
Certainly, Shannon. So, look, I'm Charles Ryman. My background spans earlier in my career agency recruitment, and then more recently public sector recruitment leadership roles. So I'm now full-time with my business. I've been coaching sort of part-time for about 8 years, and I've seen a lot in that time as well. That mix of experience has given me a well-rounded perspective on both sides of the hiring equation, really. So what employers are looking for and what job seekers struggle with. So at Charles Ryman Career Coaching, what I do is I help mid-career professionals in the private and public sectors who are feeling a bit stuck. And what we do is we create practical strategies to land the right roles, identify their strengths, identify opportunities. We don't just focus on CVs and applications. It's a lot wider than that. It's also, the biggest thing is about confidence and mindset. And building the right connections in today's competitive job market. Things like standing out through a strong personal brand, knowing how to partner effectively with recruitment agencies, which I think is really key, and also networking strategies so that you can get directly in front of the decision makers to get you hired. The other thing I also work on is a detailed action plan so that each client can stay on track and stay accountable, because it's really easy with a job search when things aren't going well to go off track a little bit. And the thing I particularly enjoy in my business is helping candidates to deliver standout interview performances by showcasing examples from their real career experience. So I've also helped organisations with in the SME sector and sort of government a little bit with how to put in place effective practices and strategies so that they can make a real difference to all participants for outcomes with recruitment. Yeah.
So things might be looking up in the job market. I wouldn't quite say that it's stable, but things are definitely improving with filled job rates rising month on month, which is certainly a very encouraging sign. But as we said, the recent survey shows that over half of Kiwis lack confidence in finding a new job, and about the same of employers think that conditions are actually worsening. Where do you think this disconnect between the data and I guess the lived experience is coming from?
Sure thing. So it's that gap between, as you say, statistics and the lived experience. So on paper, things might look steady. but many job seekers are facing real challenges. In some sectors, due to cuts, unemployment, a bit of restructuring, there are quite a high number of candidates competing for the same roles, which makes it very tough for those not only sort of making direct applications, but networking as well. So on the employer side, it's a bit of a different challenge. They're often overwhelmed. I mean, what I was when I was in internal recruitment, with a high number of applications to choose from. And the process often takes longer to sort of make the right decision. And also there's a budget element to that too with hiring at the moment. So yeah, from my experience, you sort of see both sides of this pretty clearly. The positive news and the change that we're seeing there is that we're starting to see signs of recovery, with more roles being made available for recruitment. There are a few smaller projects kicking off in government and also in the private sector that I've seen. The market is starting to show those green shoots, those signs of growth that you want to see there from an economic recovery. So over the next 18 months, I think the market will begin to swing back the other way to sort of stabilise as growth picks up, and this will create more opportunities for both candidates and employers to connect, which is what we really want.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, interesting that you said from the employer's perspective, and often they'll have the opposite problem where just getting through the sheer number of applications. I think as well we're starting to see, there will be a lot of businesses who haven't been able to hire, or they've had a freeze on recruitment.
Right.
So they really want to make sure that they're getting it right. So it means that sometimes you can risk the process getting extended, or they might put in a few extra hoops to for job seekers to jump through, so that they have that peace of mind that they're really getting the best person for the role. Flipping back to job seekers, what's some advice for them? What are some of the common mistakes you think that they could be making that's hurting their confidence or their success?
Yeah, sure, not a problem. So I see this a lot. People first come to me, they're a bit unsure, and I think one of the biggest things is don't treat looking for a job like a numbers game, sending off as many applications as possible. It's really important to tailor them. It's really important to understand who you're applying with and what they're looking for, and really, tailoring to fit to the role. Another is focusing on technical skills too much, and forgetting about the mindset and the confidence right when you've done all the hard work to get shortlisted, and then when you go through to interview stage to present yourself really well. I'm saying absolutely do apply directly for roles that you see advertised. You should be doing that. It's your bread and butter, but don't forget to utilize other channels as well, because they're really powerful. So too many overlook, I see, sort of pictures not being put on LinkedIn profiles, or standing out and building that personal brand. And the other big one, which half of Wellington, I think, in New Zealand will know about this, is utilise recruitment agencies. They're there to help you. They have a job to do as well in terms of finding the best possible person for their client, and they can really help you get and sort of stand out ahead of the pack there, on a shorter list that goes through to the hiring managers. So key there. I think the biggest thing is getting in front of decision makers if you can, via that networking. So utilising LinkedIn, but remembering, going back to what I was saying before, it's the old adage. It's not what you know, but it's who you know. Your warm network, so the people that you already know that are in that circle that you're connected to, they know who you are, they trust you, is just important and a really good place to start. Referrals can be really good there. So it's often, those that you have that trust and credibility with, and you can quickly get put in touch with hiring managers via mutual introductions. So that's really important too. Like we said before, LinkedIn. It's a great way to connect and get in front of hiring managers and showcase what you do. And most importantly, what problems can you solve for that business as well, is a big question. When I was a hiring manager, I would be thinking, what can this candidate do for me in terms of my work program? So yeah, the networking really sort of helps to open those doors. Funnily enough, in my career, 3 times I've been placed recently by agencies before I started my own business, and so it's really key to keep those networks up. But also the last couple of times it was networking as well. So when you really combine all of those strategies, you'll see your chances of success as a candidate grow dramatically.
Perfect. Great advice there, and thanks very much for the plug for recruitment agencies. We promise we didn't force them to say that. Now, looking at employers, now they may be missing out on key opportunities. what's some advice for them to be able to continue to attract top talent in this market?
Sure. I think it's being what candidates are wanting from their perspective is a bit more of a flexible recruitment process, but you still have to cover your bases and get the right person and have a strong, robust process. So I think employers just keeping an eye on maybe not overemphasizing qualifications and specific experience rather than looking at potential and transferable skills. There are some really great candidates out there. Cultural fit's important, but, you know, with a candidate that ticks most of the boxes that you're happy with, good training and induction processes can go a long way to bridge that gap to get someone in that's going to hit the mark for you. I've seen in both private and public sector organisations candidates lost because the recruitment process was quite slow. It took quite a while. I mean, I know some of that is fixed at the moment, but the one thing you can do better there around is sort of, you know, engagement in the communication. So keeping candidates up to date, and then likewise on the candidates part too. If you're going to attend an interview, stay in touch. You know, keep the process rolling. I think the other thing that's really important when we talk about candidate branding is also the employer branding and the employer value proposition. So standing out of the market saying why, you know, would you like to work for us, and what are the key drivers if you do join our whānau here at work? What are you going to get out of it as a candidate? Because I think those really top tier candidates, they do their research, they're strong in their personal brand, and they know what they're looking for when they join an organisation too. So it's about that flexibility on both parts.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think, you know, we think about making a good first impression, and we're often thinking about on the candidate side, but really this is the first real introduction to the organisation as well. So it's important how that process goes. And I think in this kind of market where we're talking about the perception, so, you know, obviously we're aware that the unemployment rate has been rising. Particularly at the end of last year, there was a lot of talk from employers about, there's lots of people in the market, so this is going to be easy when we are looking for new kaimahi. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to be in competition, and they still need to do the hard yards in making sure that they present a really good employee value proposition, as you say. Now, what mindset shift do you think Kiwi workers need to make when approaching today's job market? And what are some of the practical strategies that can help job seekers, you know, who may be discouraged? It is a really challenging market, but ways to rebuild their confidence and break back into the workforce.
Sure. Look, with my business, confidence is my middle name when I'm working with clients. And the thing is, I see quite a lot is they are quite stressed, and it's quite a hard market and not hearing back and whatnot. But here's the thing, you've got to move from the reactive to the proactive and be really positive, okay? Because when you get to interviews, you're putting your brand out there, you're putting yourself out there. So rather moving and sort of saying, well, I hope someone hires me, and don't get me wrong, it is really tough. Job seekers need to ask themselves, how do I show my value? How do I stand out to the right people and think outside the box? And that's where all the networking and the other strategies come into play. Confidence grows, research shows, and in my business as well, from taking small, deliberate steps, clarifying your strengths, understanding what they are, and tailoring each application and celebrating progress, albeit small, along the way. Just as important are those strategies that we talked about earlier, so building a strong personal brand on places like LinkedIn, in your circles, staying networking so employers know who you are. Again, I can't stress how important this is, being an ex-agency recruiter, partnering with recruitment agencies. They have new roles that come in all the time, and if you stay top of mind, you know, a contract or a fixed term might lead to a permanent role down the line as well, and you might land your dream job. So, and also, you know, networking and getting directly in front of hiring managers via your circle. So having support systems as well for candidates at the moment is key, and that might be a coach like myself, one option, but also, you know, peers, people in your family group, or mentors that you might have in your professional circle. These sorts of things really help you to rebuild your confidence in the sectors we're in. And most importantly, just to sum up, we've talked about the signs of recovery and more roles appearing, more opportunities appearing over the next 18 months. It's time right now to put those strategies into place, okay, so that you can be proactive as a candidate, you can stand out, and you can really take advantage of the upswing and opportunity. So the biggest thing, I think, is confidence, staying positive, and looking at your whole strategy. Yeah.
Fantastic. Some great tips there. Thank you so much, Charles. And if you want to give your career a boost or give yourself a bit of an edge in this market, feel free to reach out to Charles. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. Okay, let's take a look at the social media poll for this week. Okay, so today on Mahi Media, we're talking about MPTs. What is that? Non-promotable tasks. Are you getting lumped with invisible work? Well, if you are, you're probably not alone. So let's talk about those. They're the non-promotable tasks. So they're the behind-the-scenes jobs that keep the workplaces ticking but really get you promoted. You know, the ones taking meeting notes, planning the office birthday shout, onboarding the new intern, keeping the kitchen in order. They're the glue that holds a team together, but glue rarely gets promoted. Now, these tasks, of course, exist across all industries, just in different forms. In office settings, they might be admin-heavy or culture-based. In healthcare, they often look like emotional labour, being the one to comfort distressed patients, support junior colleagues, or pick up the slack when someone's off sick. Important? Absolutely. Career advancing? Well, not always. So why do we keep saying yes to these things? A lot of the time it's because we care. We want to be team players, we value the culture, and in many cases you don't want to let people down. But here's the thing, when you're the one that's always doing it, you risk burning out or becoming invisible in performance reviews, while others rack up the big ticket achievements that lead to promotions. Now, we saw in Frog Recruitment's 2025 market report that workers, and especially Gen Z and millennials, are more aware of this than ever. So even though we know it's a challenging market, employees are becoming more vocal about what they're willing to do and where they want to be recognised. People want to contribute, but they also want clarity, which tasks lead to advancement and which ones are just you being nice. So, if you're always the one being asked or expected to pick up the non-promotable task, here's your reminder. You don't need to be a martyr. So start saying no. You're allowed to protect your energy and your career goals. So let someone else write the minutes or organise the cake this time. Speak up. Ask your manager to clarify how your contributions are being recognised. If certain tasks matter, they should count. Document your impact. Now, even if it feels small, things like mentoring new hires or smoothing team tensions, keeping the wheels turning, deserves acknowledgement. And lastly, suggest rotation. So if you feel like you're always the one that's being tapped for these roles, suggest a fair rotation system across the team. Get the others to chip in as well. And on the other side, if you're a manager or team leader, it's on you to notice who's picking up the invisible load and to call it out, share it around and reward it where possible. Because if you don't, you risk losing the very people who are keeping your culture and your team afloat. So let's take a look at some of the new jobs that are on offer across New Zealand. And this week's latest job opportunities are presented by our 2025 New Zealand Employment and Salary Trends Report. We're getting to the end of our stack of reports, so get in quick if you still want to discuss the latest trends and salary information. As always, this is a selection of the roles that we have on offer this week. So we have senior financial accountant in Wellington, as well as a business project manager and policy analyst. Again, the policy space is, I wouldn't quite say booming, but it's definitely picked up. So there's lots of opportunities in that area in our Wellington team. And then for New Zealand, we have a trust accountant role as for Auckland, we have a trust accountant role as well. Have a look at our website and set up a job alert to get an idea of the new jobs coming through. That is it for today's show. Thank you so much for joining us again. I hope you got some valuable tips from that if you are on the lookout for new jobs, or if you're sick of being the one doing all the extra invisible tasks around the office or your workplace. We'll see you here same time next week. See you then.